Smiley possibly being the entity in control of the monsters is one of the more subtle plot lines that I never see anybody talking about, despite there being so much evidence to support it.
As I saw them, it promised them that they would live forever. They sacrificed their children.
They wanted me to watch.
One of the biggest signs of Smiley being the entity in control of the monsters is how the Nightwalkers clearly set up this entire presentation just for his resurrection in particular. But something else about this scene that most people never even noticed is how the Nightwalkers also placed these lanterns to ensure that Boyd would be able to see Smiley being reborn. And it is well known that the entity in control of the monsters has a very strong grudge against Boyd in particular. So if it is eventually revealed that Smiley somehow, some way has in fact been the entity this entire time, it would directly tie into why it was so important for him to make sure that Boyd saw him being resurrected. And this would also explain why even the Kimono demon itself was bowing in reverence to Smiley's magnificent form, almost as if looking up to him like some sort of elder god or ancient deity. But this brings me into another moment that gives us a massive clue as to the level of importance that Smiley clearly holds in the hierarchy compared to these clearly inferior and lesser demons.
It's laughing at you for setting it free. It got so excited when it touched your arm. It wants to make us suffer.
This scene is easily the most important in the entire show, as it was the very first time that we were given explicit evidence of the entity's existence, with him also revealing his obsession with Boyd and also explaining why he has engineered the Nightwalkers in such a way as to maximize the suffering of the people of the town as opposed to just killing them, even though they could easily do that. But what's most noteworthy here is how the entity in control of the monsters specifically laughs at Boyd for setting it free, while also expressing an insane amount of pleasure for supposedly touching Kenny's arm. And this one statement in particular gives us a huge piece of evidence that Smiley himself and the entity in control of the monsters are simply just one and the same, because it directly ties back to one of the most powerful scenes in this entire story.
My blood is your blood now.
This scene here actually holds one of the biggest hints that Smiley and the entity in control of the monsters are the exact same being. Because think about this for a second. What did the entity in control of the monsters say when he was laughing at Boyd at the ruins? He specifically says that he got very excited when he touched Kenny's arm. But when exactly did this supposed event actually take place? Well, this is something that happens when the cicadas appeared in Kenny's dream. And if the entity is saying that he was the one that did that, it therefore implies that the entity in control of the monsters and Smiley are the exact same being. Because think about this, he was laughing at Boyd for setting him free, but the cicadas were not released into the town until after Boyd killed Smiley by infecting him with the worms, and that is what actually freed the cicadas, therefore the entity in the first place. But this therefore implies that Boyd being infected with the worms and the music box is not what freed the entity in control of the monsters, but it was actually this specific act of killing Smiley that actually did it. But that would also mean that this body was actually just a prison specifically designed to keep the entity in control of the monsters inside. And this is where things start to get crazy.
You always tell me how lonely you are in there. It wasn't my choice to be this way.
They touch, they break, they steal. Here they come, three. No one here is free.
When Sarah describes the voice laughing at Boyd at the ruins, she uses the word it, implying a direct connection between that being and the it that Fatima described having made a deal with the Nightwalkers to give them immortality. But when Sarah describes the voices laughing about the townspeople being unable to get to Fatima before she gave birth to Smiley, she says they, not it, but they were laughing.
I heard the voices. They want you to know that she's afraid and that something took her. They know you won't find her in time. They were laughing.
This implies that there are two different voices that she speaks to, one of them being an it, which is presumably the entity that's in control of the monsters itself, and the other being called the voices is seemingly a group as opposed to an individual being. So when you consider that the Kimono demon was bowing before Smiley at the resurrection, it does imply the existence of a group of beings above the Nightwalkers in power, but below the entity itself. And these beings, if Smiley is in fact the entity in control of the monsters, then it becomes clear that they obviously revere Smiley as some sort of deity, hence why the Kimono demon was kneeling before him at his resurrection. But there's something else I need to show you.
Did you go through the tree? Yeah. That's when they get you.
This moment remains one of the most relevant when it comes to unraveling the entity's manipulations, because Martin specifically says things like they are coming back, and that it wasn't the Nightwalkers who captured him, but some sort of they, and this supports the idea of these beings simply working for the entity himself. But this would also imply that the boy in white and the Kimono demon are both possibly worshippers of this entity, as it was the boy himself who sends Boyd into the dungeon in the first place to be infected with the worms. There's also the ballerina who showed Boyd how to kill Smiley in the first place. And of course, there's also the man in yellow who's possibly a part of this they that Martin was supposedly referring to as well.
I know you out there. All you fucking do is knock on our doors. Well, I'm standing right here. You want to play?
I like this game.
The scene where Smiley gets taken out by Boyd gives us some very clear signs that the entire thing was obviously planned. Like, notice how Smiley steps into the scene immediately after Boyd walked out into the road. What this implies to me is that he was already there, specifically waiting for Boyd to show up before revealing himself. This has an incredible resemblance to something that happens in another scene, and that is when Victor's mom reaches the bottle tree. Smiley wasn't chasing Victor's mom. He was already there, hiding in the shadows, waiting for her to arrive. And this is a good example of the absurd levels of manipulation that's been happening to the people of this town, because this entire thing was a trap set up by the boy in white from the very beginning. Like, at this point, there's only two questions about what happened here that still remain. And the first would be, was Victor's mom the intended target the entire time? Or was it supposed to have been Christopher that should have been taken out? That is the first question. But the other one, something that's never mentioned by anybody in this community at all, is that they never actually showed us if there was even a hole in this tree at all. Like, think about this. We'd already seen multiple faraway trees and 2 bottle trees by this point in the story. So if there was a teleportation hole in this tree, which is supposed to be the same bottle tree that sends Tabitha to the lighthouse, why would the writers choose to frame this shot in such a way that you can't even tell if there was ever a hole in the tree at all? It doesn't make any sense from a cinematographic perspective unless it's supposed to lead to another crazy revelation in the story down the line. And we know for sure that they did this on purpose, because remember what happens with Boyd in the dungeon. He opened the door and they never showed us what he was looking at. And then we just happen to have this huge moment in season 3 with Julie opening this same door and finding herself down in the same tunnels that the monsters have been living in this entire time. Oh, man.
The boy in white was trying to tell Christopher that to save the children, he would have to go through the tree.
Everything lies here.
Christopher's statement that everything lies here is going to become very relevant in the upcoming seasons. Like, even now, I am not even convinced that Christopher is even dead in the first place. Victor specifically says that he never found his body. And we also know for a fact that he wasn't the one who caused the massacre, because he literally says that he does not believe any of these entities because he can tell that they're obviously just demons trying to manipulate him. This matters so much because it means Christopher obviously would not have told the Nightwalkers about the hiding spots of the humans in the first place. Like, I'm telling you, the longer this story goes on, the more and more obvious it becomes that Christopher was completely right. Everything that we are seeing here has clearly been a lie from the very beginning of this story. Do not believe anything that these demons are trying to tell you. Like, even when you look at this scene with Elgin, what was happening here is just one of the many clues showing a direct connection between the Kimono demon itself and Tilly. So watch this video next to understand what Tilly really is and where she actually came from.